I've moved from my office and music room into my art studio. This will give me a little more room to demonstrate some of the exercises that we'll be doing in the future in this series of Chekhov techniques. I've decided to edit and update the language of the original printed text of Michael Chekhov's book on the technique of acting. I feel it makes it more relatable to today's actors. So today I'm going to talk about atmosphere. I've talked about it before, but atmosphere is one of the strongest means of expression for actors, as well as an unbreakable link between them and the audience. Today, almost any kind of performance, whether it's film or television or live theater, uses music to create atmosphere from one scene to the next. Think about how much that music score will affect you and your emotions while you're watching. That's why film scores are so important. But when you're working on a film or TV show or anything on camera, you don't have the advantage of that film score to cue your atmosphere. So it's still important for actors to understand and work within the atmosphere that's appropriate for every scene. Chekhov talks about it this way. Imagine Romeo speaking his words of love to Juliet without the atmosphere of love. Although the spectator may understand the sublime text and enjoy the beauty of Shakespeare's verse, he or she will still miss something of the content. What is this content? It's love itself. All feelings require a specific atmosphere to be conveyed to the audience. Without these proper atmospheres radiating from the actors, Shakespeare's words of love, hate, despair, they reverberate meaninglessly in empty psychological space. Atmosphere reveals the content of the performance. What can you do to gain understanding of atmosphere? You need to pay attention to all of the atmosphere around you at all times. Close attention. Every day, all kinds of places and situations. There's tons of atmosphere. From the serenity of a cathedral or a small church, a school, an office building, the atmosphere of an operating room, the tension you feel there, the big city streets or a small town main street. Think about how it feels when you're around people who are talking quietly versus how it feels when you're around people who are arguing. Each different atmosphere that you didn't create, but felt and reacted to, much like music. I've mentioned before, I use music in my preparation for a role and in my practicing. So try this. Sit and let the atmosphere of the moment wash over you. Fully immerse yourself in that atmosphere. In your imagination, think of a play or a scene from a film that you're very familiar with. Ask yourself what the atmosphere in that scene is. Then imagine that scene in a different atmosphere. Tweak it a little bit. Don't rush. Take the time to let the characters develop their own reactions to the subtle nuances that you made to the atmosphere. This will inspire your imaginary characters. Suddenly you realize that these images truly have an independent life. And then change that atmosphere and keep trying different things and see how that would affect it. Now for an exercise, what you're going to do is imagine the air around you filled with the atmosphere that you've chosen. No more difficult than imagining air filled with light or dust or smoke. Don't ask yourself, how can the air be filled with joy or tenderness or horror? You have to try it practically. Your first effort will show you immediately how simple it is. Now, what you have to learn is how to sustain the imaginary atmosphere that now envelops you. In this exercise, you don't need to imagine special circumstances or events to justify the atmosphere. That'll only distract your attention and make the exercise unnecessarily complicated. Keep it simple. Kiss, keep it simple, student. Now move and speak within the atmosphere. Start with simple movements, a few words, trying to establish full harmony between your words and the atmosphere. So what you need to do is imagine the air around you filled with a certain atmosphere. Become aware of the reaction within you. Next, move, speak in harmony with the atmosphere. Finally, radiate it back into the space around you. As you advance in this technique, you begin to notice that atmosphere is never static. It's dynamic, a process rather than a state. It lives and moves constantly. Although this movement is purely inward, it's invisible, a psychological one. Without atmosphere, the performance becomes mechanized. It can be intellectually understood. Its technical skills can be appreciated, and yet it will remain cold and heartless. Remember, the work must never show. So you need to practice and practice and practice these until it's not work anymore. The effect of atmosphere is often obscured by the individual feelings of actors, flashing here and there during the performance. But separate actors are only part of the whole and have to be united with each other and with the audience to create a performance. That's an organic whole. How can they do this if they're not all enveloped in one atmosphere? Now, when I'm directing, I depend heavily on atmosphere and getting all of the actors in the same atmosphere at the same time. So it's important for me as a director to communicate that to the actors. So work on this, and I'll see you in the next video. Remember to like and subscribe if you like it. It means a lot to me and I really appreciate it. Be sure and join me on Patreon. All of these lessons in full will be on Patreon.